Picture a boxing match so lopsided the referee steps in and calls it early. That's basically what happened a week ago when Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy shared a tee time for the first 2 rounds of the FedEx St. Jude Championship. It wasn't competitive. It wasn't close. Scheffler outplayed McIlroy by 15 shots across those 36 holes, and that was just the warm-up act before he demolished the rest of the field and walked away with an 8-stroke victory. Broadcasters watching live struggled to even describe it as a contest. Fast forward to this week in St. Louis, and the two aren't grouped together anymore. But if golf fans were hoping for a rematch narrative, round 1 at Bellerive Country Club just delivered a plot twist nobody saw coming. Rory McIlroy, who looked shaky and out of sync just days earlier in Memphis, showed up and fired a bogey-free 64. Meanwhile, Scottie Scheffler, still riding the high of the most dominant performance golf had seen all season, looked completely out of rhythm. He carded a 2-over-7-2. At one stage during his round, he was sitting dead last on the leaderboard. When the day wrapped up, he was tied for 44th in a 50-man field. Let that sink in for a second. The best player on the planet, fresh off a career-defining rout, finished nearly last in the opening round of his very next start. So what changed for McIlroy? Honestly, it sounds almost too simple. He flew back to Florida for a single day between tournaments to work with his longtime coach, Michael Bannon. In that short session, they zeroed in on a specific swing feeling and a pre-shot routine he could carry into the new week. That was the entire fix. McIlroy described it as getting back on the right track with his game, while being upfront that it's still very much a process and not a finished product. What's fascinating is how he got there. McIlroy only found 7 fairways all day, not exactly a stat that screams bogey-free round, but he made up for it everywhere else. He hit an outstanding 17 greens in regulation and ranked second in the entire field for strokes gained on approach shots. His scrambling and recovery play carried him through the holes where his tee shots let him down. And here's the kicker. His longest made birdie putt of the day was only 14 feet. He wasn't burying bombs from all over the green. He was simply precise, relentless, and efficient, grinding out short putts and clean approaches rather than relying on one hero shot. He closed with a flourish too, picking up 4 birdies over his final 6 holes to vault into a 5-way tie for the lead. Now flip over to Scheffler's side of the story, because this is where things get genuinely strange. For the better part of 10 holes, nothing worked. He found himself 4 over par with 8 holes still to play, buried in 50th place. To his credit, he clawed back with a couple of late birdies to limit the damage to 2 over, finishing just 1 shot better than the worst score recorded all day. But when you consider the numbers behind that round, it's almost hard to believe it's the same golfer. This was a player who, coming into St. Louis, had shot over par exactly once in his previous 18 competitive rounds. And the 2 parts of his game that had been absolutely lights out the week before in Memphis, his iron play and his putter, were suddenly his biggest liabilities. He ranked 3rd worst in the entire field for approach shots and 4th worst on the greens. The exact strengths that carried him to an 8-shot blowout just 7 days earlier completely abandoned him. It's a wild contrast to sit with. 4 days ago, McIlroy looked adrift, searching for answers, while Scheffler looked untouchable, like he was playing a different sport than everyone else. Now the roles have flipped entirely, at least for 1 round. McIlroy found clarity through 1 focused day of work with his coach, while Scheffler, seemingly out of nowhere, hit a wall with the very tools that made him so dominant. Of course, 1 round doesn't rewrite the story of a season. Scheffler has proven time and time again that he can respond to a slow start, and 36 holes remain before anyone can call this tournament shaped. But there's something undeniably compelling about the timing of it all. The player who got embarrassed a week ago delivered the first real statement of round 2. Whether it holds up over the weekend is anyone's guess, but for one Thursday at Bellerive, Rory McIlroy landed the first punch. And that's really what makes golf like this so addictive to follow. It's not just about who's ranked number 1 or who won the last event. It's about these small, human turning points, a single day in Florida with a coach, a swing thought, a pre-shot rehearsal, that can completely flip a player's fortunes almost overnight. McIlroy didn't need a massive overhaul. He needed 1 specific fix and the discipline to trust it under pressure. Scheffler, on the other hand, is a reminder that even the most dominant golfer alive is still human, still capable of an off day, even right after the best week of his career. So heading into round 2, all eyes will be on whether McIlroy can back up this statement round and whether Scheffler can steady the ship before the cut line becomes a real concern. Because in golf, momentum can swing violently in either direction within just 18 holes. One week, you're the most dominant force the sport has seen in years. The next, you're grinding just to make the weekend. And one week, you're staring up from the bottom of the leaderboard, and the next, you're sharing the lead with a bogey-free round that came out of nowhere. This tournament just got a lot more interesting. Stick around, because round 2 at Bellerive could tell us whether this was a genuine changing of the guard or just one strange, unpredictable day in a sport that never stopped surprising us.